Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Big Game Bound. I'm Jack Doles. So glad you tuned in for a special playoff edition. We are into the divisional round now, and to help get you ready for one of the great weekends of NFL football, we're calling on our correspondents from all around the NFL. Coming up on Big Game Bound, Jarrett Payton joins us to talk about the incredible crop of quarterbacks that are still playing right now and which one's the MVP. We'll also talk to our correspondents from Green Bay, New Orleans, Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cleveland. And our guest is a guy named Blake. He's barely stepped foot in the city of Cleveland, and he's already a Cleveland legend. We'll start with the insights of Jarrett Payton. He joins us every week from Chicago. Jarrett, which of these divisional games intrigues you the most?
I'm going to have to go with the Green Bay Packers and the Rams. I think it's one of those matchups. We know how good the Packers offense is and how good that Aaron Rodgers is playing right now on such a MVP level. So can there be a defense that can stop them? And, man, when you look at that Rams defense, they have been lights out. And I know you look at everybody around and Ramsey to Donald and trying to figure out his situation of injury in the last game, but still that defense is playing at a high level right now. So I want to see if there's a way they can maybe slow down that Packers offense and maybe get a chance for Jared Goff to be able to make some plays. It's going to be tough, but to stop a good offense, you got to have a good defense, and the Rams have shown that all season long.
All right, the NFC, we've got the old guard, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, all first ballot Hall of Famers. In the AFC, you've got Mahomes, Mayfield, Jackson, Allen. Every single one of the quarterfinals and the Final Four are every one of those quarterbacks 25 or younger. How excited are you to see this crop of quarterbacks on this stage?
You know, Jack, isn't it crazy to think about when you look at, the guys that have been doing it that are going to be future Hall of Famers and, in the Breeze and Brady and these guys that are the prototypical drop back quarterbacks. And then when you look at the new age quarterbacks, you have all these guys that not only can sling the ball, but also they can have the opportunity to get outside and run and use their legs. And I think it's just awesome to be able to see that the evolution of the quarterback position is changing and how it's changing. And, I grew up watching those prototypical drop back quarterbacks. And then next thing you know, now we're starting to see the game change now. And it's just cool to be able to see these young quarterbacks with that type of skill set able to be at this point of the season in the playoffs and, trying to really battle to be able to get to the Super Bowl and hopefully win a Super Bowl championship.
Other than Rodgers against the Rams, which of these quarterbacks has the toughest matchup this weekend?
I think it's going to have to be Baker Mayfield. I mean, you look at the Browns and the situation that they have in front of them. You're going against, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And so, you know that it's going to be like a track meet with them, and you got to be able to score with them or figure out a way to be able to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. And I think, with seeing what Cleveland's been able to do all season long, that's run the football as well. They got two good backs, so to be able to figure out a way to be able to grind it down on the ground and also just pound it in if they can and extend some plays and some drives and also eat up some clock. It might give them an opportunity, but I think Baker Mayfield, he's got the biggest hill to climb. But when you see how fiery he is and how much he loves the game, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing is how he battles against Patrick Mahomes.
Which of these quarterbacks end up playing in the Super Bowl?
Ooh, come on, Jack. Really? You're going to hit me with that right now?
Yes, I am.
If I have to think about it right now, I've been saying this, and it's just what the first thing that came to my mind when I started to look at the playoff picture. I went Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's just what I think. I mean, we're talking about two guys that are MVPs. You can kind of flip-flop which one you want to choose. But I think both quarterbacks are playing at such a high level right now. We know when it comes down to this point in the season, you got to be able to play defense, but the league's changing as well. Offensively, you got to be able to score points. And, just to see how both guys have taken care of the football this year as well. It's really hard when they're throwing touchdowns and not a lot of interceptions. I just think that both guys are just playing at such a high level that they're going to be playing in Tampa.
You gave me permission to flip-flop who wins the MVP, but I'm not giving you that permission. Who wins the 2020 MVP?
Yeah, I think my Chicago fan base here will probably be upset with me, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, listen, you play this game everybody wants to, every single year, what you start off 0-0, and then next thing you know, you try to find a way to be able to get to a Super Bowl championship and to be able to hoist that trophy. Well, I'm going to go with the guy that just kind of beat us at the end of the regular season here in Chicago. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I just think at his age and, being one of those quarterbacks that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, a lot of people count him out in Green Bay, and he came back in 2020 with a season that was just unpredictable, all the things with COVID and trying to figure all this stuff out. And he played at such a high level and shown that he still has a lot left in the tank. And it's kind of scary. It's scary when you play in the NFC North, your team's in the NFC North, and you got to be able to see 12 twice a year. Yeah, I think right now, if you're going to give the trophy to anybody, it's got to go to Aaron Rodgers.
Super Wild Card Weekend provided a ton of drama, Jarrett. Should the NFL keep 3 wild cards going forward or go back to 2 with 2 teams in each conference getting that bye on the Wild Card Weekend?
I didn't know what to expect, Jack, when they made the switch this year. I just didn't know. I was like, I don't know. But the way that things kind of played itself out, I think it was a lot of drama and great drama for football fans who, got a chance to sit in front of the TV and watch more football. I'm always up for more football, especially on a single day, because that means that I can fold laundry and also watch football. So, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, your honey-do list. I'm going to say this. I think they should probably keep it. But where we are right now in our world and where we are with this pandemic, who's to say by the time we get back to next season that it's different. I just believe right now things are going to stay the same. And I think they've seen the success as well by seeing the viewership and the fans getting a chance to really get into this. And then I think it's just we don't know where we're going to be at. And I think that's the biggest question mark. So for right now, I'd be all in favor to be able to keep it the way it is. It was a lot of fun being able to watch more football. Super Wild Card Weekend, it's a lot more fun folding clothes.
The first game of the weekend will be played on the frozen tundra at Lambeau Field. Rams and Packers. Burke Griffin is our Packers correspondent. Burke, first, most important, what's the forecast for Saturday afternoon?
Well, with my huge meteorology experience, it's supposed to be in the 20s. Look, it's not going to be a snow globe kind of game, similar to what we saw with the Tennessee Titans toward the end of the regular season there. But mid to high 20s, it might get down to 15 later in the evening. But that 3:30 start time on Saturday afternoon will help because the sun will at least be out during the first half. But when the sun goes down, the second half will be a cold one.
Is there a bigger home field advantage than January in Green Bay, especially when you go up against a team that either plays in a dome or someone from a warm weather city like the Rams?
Yes and no. The players are adjusted to it. The real home field advantage is 80,000 fans screaming at Lambeau Field. Now, there will only be a little bit over 6,000, but that's still the most by far here in Green Bay this season. And when it comes to playing in that cold and in the elements, the guys are used to walking across the street over to the Don Hutson Center, practicing somewhat indoors, but every day, Matt LaFleur and company, they send them out to play in these elements because they know that's what they'll be doing on the weekend. So they will be a little bit more used to it, but once the Rams get rid of that first little part of the game where it's cold, 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 once you're running around out there, it should be fine. It won't be below 0.
All right, let's get off weather. The biggest concern for the Packers regarding the Rams.
Well, it's probably another guy named Aaron, not Rodgers or Jones, but Aaron Donald. I mean, look, he can wreck a game plan that anybody puts together. He is a force to be reckoned with and one of the, probably you could say one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time, at least on the interior. I mean, no one gets pressure to the quarterback. 13 and a half sacks this year? I mean, he's just a beast inside. Now, the Packers lost David Bakhtiari for the season. He's an all-pro, so they've had to shuffle things around a little bit. But the Rams are very good at moving Donald all along, up and down that line of scrimmage. So that's really the one thing they do fear.
Just signed Jared Valdir, guy from our neck of the woods here. Aaron Rodgers, a California guy, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. How well has he handled elements over the years?
You know what? Fairly well. I mean, I think Brett Favre used to be kind of a guy who, well, I'm not going to wear any gloves on the sidelines. I'm not going to. He's the tough guy. And Rodgers, he looks at it as an advantage no matter what. I mean, he's always got, you know, the warm thing that hangs around the pouch by his jersey. He's very calculating with how he prepares himself on the sidelines. You can see he's always by the heater. And he's a guy who, if you go back and look at all of the cold weather games that he's played in, whether it was the NFC Championship game in Chicago against the Bears, they played Philly that year, they won the Super Bowl. He's done fairly well in cold weather games. All
right, Rodgers, a first ballot Hall of Famer, no question. What does this legacy need to put him on the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, or is he already there in your mind?
I think he's already there, but if you throw in a third MVP this season and another Lombardi trophy, there's no doubt about it. Even Favre himself has said earlier this season that what he is doing and where he's at in his career is just amazing. He might be the greatest football player ever. 48 touchdowns and just 5 interceptions. I mean, that is unheard of in the NFL.
Yeah, we know the Rams are banged up. Goff with the thumb injury. Aaron Donald's dealing with the rib injury. How healthy are the Packers? Any COVID concerns right now?
No COVID concerns. The only guy to miss the first practice of the week was Kiki Kingsley, a backup defensive lineman. But the coronavirus has been handled very well here in Green Bay, and especially over at 1265 Lombardi Avenue. A.J. Dillon was really the only guy who had a lengthy stay of time. I think it was 5 weeks total. He was out of the lineup after getting the coronavirus, and he said it was awful. It was one of the worst things he's ever had. But then again, a month later, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown when they needed him the most on the ground when they faced the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry. So no COVID concerns as of yet, knock on wood for the green and gold. And injury-wise, they're pretty healthy. Like I said, they lost David Bakhtiari in that final week of the season due to a non-contact injury. But other than him, they're full go at pretty much every position.
Yeah, so they had the bye week, but they just seem to be playing with this air of confidence. Would you say that's true? I mean, do they just walk into these playoffs now and just feel like this could be their destiny?
Well, as much as people want to ride the TB12 Tom Brady train and the Drew Brees, the aging veterans that are going to go at it in the other half of the NFC bracket, I think right now there's no question about it. The Packers are the team to beat and the odds-on favorite to not only get to the Super Bowl, but have as good a chance as anybody to beat Kansas City or whoever they might face.
One of the big matchups in the NFC, Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, round 3. Ed Daniels is our Saints correspondent, joins us from New Orleans. Ed, the Saints whipped the Bucs twice in the regular season, beat them 38-3 in the second meeting. How confident are they heading into this game?
You know, Jack, I think the Saints have to be pretty confident. If you look at that game, that 38-3 game, that was a real tail between the legs whipping for Tampa Bay. I think a couple of things. Number one, the Saints, I think, have proven over the 2 games that they're better at the line of scrimmage than the Bucs, both on the offensive and defensive lines. And if you look at the turnover situation, it's New Orleans with 6 turnovers forced, Tampa Bay with 2. In those 2 games. So the Saints are +4 in those 2 games, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But I think the Saints are confident because they're just a really good football team, and it's going to take a really good performance by Tom Brady or maybe Green Bay next week in the snow in Lambeau, I think, to keep them out of the Super Bowl.
All right, Michael Thomas scored his first touchdown of the season in the Saints' win over the Bears. How much have they missed his production this season, and how much more dangerous is this offense when he's healthy and productive?
You know, first touchdown for Michael Thomas since December of 2019 when he scored against the Tennessee Titans. I think they've missed him. The record with Michael Thomas this year in the lineup is 6-1. And it's hard to say that you don't miss a guy who had 149 catches a year ago, an NFL record. The deal is, with any number 1 receiver, especially a guy like Michael Thomas, if you don't have him, all of a sudden your number 2 guy becomes your number 1. Your number 3 guy becomes your number 2. And I think there's a little bit of a snowball effect. And I do think the Saints missed him, and Thomas made some big plays in the game against the Bears. One thing that Sean Payton said I thought was interesting is that he is not 100% healthy, but he feels like he's rounding into form. Remember, The Saints put him on injured reserve at the end of the season to basically force themselves to give him a 3-week rest. So I think he's a lot better, but he's not 100%. But to answer your question, of course they missed him.
This defense held the Bears to 38 yards rushing. The last time they took on Tampa, held them to 8. Can Tampa win this game if New Orleans forces them to be one-dimensional?
Probably not. I don't think that the Bucs can throw the ball all over the yard and win this game. I don't think they can do that. I think running the football is somewhat important. The stat that I look at is this one. I thought was pretty interesting. Found it last week. Tom Brady, when he's sacked 2 times or less in a playoff game, is 26-7. When he's sacked more than 2 times, he's 5-4. So to me, the big variable this week is pressure on the quarterback. Now, one of the guys that the Saints did not have last week was defensive end Trey Hendrickson, who's having an unbelievable year, a contract year for him, and he's going to be paid big numbers in the offseason. Well, against Tampa, he's been very important. In those 2 games, he has 3 quarterback sacks. And the one thing he gives you is consistent pressure. And to me, the biggest thing is Tampa Bay may be running the ball a little bit in this game, but will they be able to protect Tom Brady? If they can, I think they can make plays against the Saints secondary. If they can't, I think it's going to be, again, a very long game for the Bucs and their offense.
Ed, we've talked about this a few times this season, and you mentioned you feel like this will be it for Drew Brees. How much of an emotional lift does that give this team if they think he's going out after this? Are they trying to win a Super Bowl for Drew Brees?
You know, maybe so, but I think they're trying to win for everyone. They're trying to win for the entire organization. Because, look, let's face it, next year after Drew Brees, it's either going to be Taysom Hill or someone else, and you're not going to get first ballot Hall of Fame production. Not going to happen, even with a guy like Drew Brees, who is going to be 42, by the way, on Friday. So I think they're trying to win for the whole organization. Let's look at the playoffs. Who's left in the AFC? Lamar Jackson, the quarterback at Buffalo, who's a very, very good player. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. You look at this divisional round, and you don't. Baker Mayfield, who's playing very well. Of course, he has 2 very good running backs behind him. So to me, when you look at the divisional playoffs, I think what you're seeing is the importance of the quarterback. So I don't think there's any organization in the playoffs with more at stake than this one, because I think if they don't win this year, that at least temporarily, until they get that quarterback situation sorted out, that the window might close a little bit.
The first AFC divisional game will be played Saturday night at Bills Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. Ravens and Bills. Josh Reed is our Bills correspondent, joins us from Buffalo. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson both picked up their first playoff wins in that wild card round, Josh. This feels like the start of something special for both franchises. Which of these quarterbacks would you rather build around?
Yeah, I mean, these 2 are going to be tied together their entire NFL career. Of course, they were both drafted in 2018. Josh Allen went 7th overall. Lamar Jackson 32nd in the first round. As far as who would I go with, who would I build around, I got to say Josh Allen, and that's not just because I'm covering the Bills. You know, in the NFL, you still have to be able to throw the ball in order to win. I think the difference between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen when it comes to running the ball, obviously you give Lamar a slight edge, but the difference between throwing the ball, you give Josh Allen a huge advantage in that category. Allen has proven this year that he can make throws that only a few of the elite quarterbacks can make. I'm talking Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. I mean, they have elite arm talent. I'm going to go with Josh Allen, which is crazy to say because we're talking about last year's MVP, but Josh Allen this year is one of the front runners for MVP.
All right, Zach Moss injured, out for the rest of the postseason. How much of that now falls on the shoulders of Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Zach Moss, it wasn't like we're talking about a running back that was getting 15 carries per game. They sprinkled him in and out of the lineup along with Devin Singletary. I think Devin Singletary probably sees a bump in carries, but you know, you go back and you look at the box score from the last game, Josh Allen had more carries than both the running backs combined. I think the Bills tried to protect Josh as much as they could during the regular season. They didn't want him running the ball 15 times a game. It's the postseason now. You leave, there's no plays left in the playbook at the end of the game. If that means winning and advancing and Josh Allen has to run the ball 15 times, that's exactly what you do.
First playoff win in Buffalo in a quarter of a century. I know there are fan bases that have suffered even more, Detroit, Cleveland, but how much did that win mean to this Bills fan base?
Oh, it meant an awful lot. I mean, you keep in mind, the Bills didn't have fans in the stands the entire season until last week in the wild card game. They let 6,700 fans into the stadium, and they made a difference. I was a little skeptical. I thought, now, usually they have about 70,000 fans in the stands. 6,700, they made a tremendous difference. And after the game, the reaction, you could look down on the press box and see them reacting after the final play. You know, fans are hugging each other. You know, there's a picture that went viral of one of the Bills fans crying. It meant an awful lot to this community. But I will say this, because of the season, the way it kind of developed, the expectations have changed. That one win isn't going to be enough. As happy as they are, the expectation is that they will beat the Ravens, and the expectation is they will play the Chiefs in the AFC title game.
Well, you got to get by the Ravens. Ravens absolutely shut down an offense in Tennessee that had been rolling. What has to happen for Buffalo to advance to this conference finals? How do they beat Baltimore?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, you've got to limit the big play ability by Lamar Jackson and his ability to run the ball, and that's exactly what they did when they met last season. Lamar Jackson had under 200 total yards passing and running the ball. They're going to need another effort like that from their defense. The other thing, this Ravens defense is excellent at punching the ball out. They're great at creating turnovers. Talking to the Bills players throughout the week, they are very cognizant of that. And Cole Beasley was like, look, I realize that it's better for me to get down a yard early than risk the idea of a Ravens defensive back coming from behind and trying to punch the ball out. So they have to protect the ball.
Sunday, 3:05 on CBS, Browns and Chiefs square off in the AFC semifinals. That game will be played at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. Rob Collins joins us from KC. Rob, the Browns win a game without their head coach, and they had to dig so deep into their depth chart that a guy named Blake was playing left guard in the fourth quarter. How impressed were you by what the Browns were able to pull off against the Steelers?
That's crazy, man. Hi, Blake. Nice to meet you. I'm Baker Mayfield. Welcome to the team, right? What a crazy scenario for Cleveland with the injuries, COVID, and their head coach banned us to the basement like Sloth from the Goonies. Yes, impressed, but at the same time, not super surprised. We've talked about how Pittsburgh wasn't good, as their record indicated, and those of us who picked Cleveland were proved correct thanks to a perfect storm of opportunity in the first quarter, leading to that 28-point brownout of the Steelers. So impressive, yes, but I think some folks might have expected it. Cleveland has a wave of emotion right now.
Well, I know you've been on some Zoom calls with Andy Reid and the Chiefs players. What concerns them most about the Browns?
Well, Jack, let me ask you this. Have you ever put on a jacket you haven't worn in a long time and then found a $20 bill?
No.
Okay, well, that's what the Browns are right now. They're playing with house money, and they're riding a wave of dog-wagging emotion. All the pressure, if any, is on the Chiefs in this game. The concerns for the Chiefs, the old rust versus rest arguments. Most of the starters got a 3-week respite, so they haven't really been out there, and we've seen slow starts last year from the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of that to start this game. And then on defense, of course, stopping the two-headed hydra in the backfield, Nick Chubb, former Chief Kareem Hunt, that'll be a task. They are third in rushing yards in the league during the regular season. We know the Chiefs give up almost 5 yards a carry, but the only chance, in my opinion, the Browns have in this game is to keep it close, get the lead, control the clock with that rushing attack, because there's simply no way they could compete in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes.
I got to take a second, go check all my jackets right now, see if I can find some house money. 2005 is the last time a team won back-to-back Super Bowls. What makes you think this Chiefs team can end that drought?
Patrick Mahomes. Next question. No, seriously. Because of Mahomes and 3 straight come-from-behind wins last season, the Chiefs have no fear and no doubt they can come from behind if need be. They've also proven this year they can win without scoring 40 points a game. They've won a lot of close games, and then having most guys back from last season, veteran leadership, that's a massive advantage for the Chiefs as they begin that run-it-back tour.
Rob, Chiefs had the bye. How much did they need that? How healthy will they be for this game?
Yeah, they're going to be healthy and much-needed rest, especially for receivers Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right tackle Mike Remmers, linebacker Ben Neiman. A lot of dudes getting healthy. Also getting linebacker Anthony Hitchens and defensive end Mike Dana off the COVID list was big. But most importantly to me, I think this team needed a mental reset. Travis Kelce talked about complacency all season long. I believe this team got a little bit bored over the last couple of weeks of the season. So after the bye, I believe they're going to be laser focused on Sunday. I look for Mahomes and company to erupt like when a school kid drops one of those baking soda bombs in a homemade volcano. Going to see some fireworks.
All right, you witnessed firsthand how the Chiefs fed off a hungry fan base on their road to a championship last year. I know this has been a bizarre year with limited numbers of fans in the stands, depending on where you are, but do you expect the Browns to have a little extra motivation to get where the no Browns team has been before the Super Bowl?
Yeah, they should, you know. Proving people wrong certainly is a big motivator for the Browns. We know Baker Mayfield feeds off that. And from what I'm hearing, plenty of Dog Pound members will be at Arrowhead Sunday paying a pretty price for tickets. But you got to remember the Chiefs are motivated too, man. They're motivated to run it back, and they want to prove that they just didn't get lucky winning all of those one-score games. I look at it this way. The Chiefs are the king of the mountain right now, and the Browns, the little engine that could, might think they can, but Mahomes and company know they can. Call me crazy, which my wife does daily, but I see this game being close in the first half, and then the Chiefs unleash a fury of those fireworks in the second half to blow past the Browns and host their 3rd straight AFC championship.
For the Browns side of the story, we call on John Telich in Cleveland. John, you've seen a lot of big wins in Cleveland, a lot of heartbreak. Where does this one rank?
I'm going to go back, Jack, to the year when Bernie and the Browns came alive and had a overtime affair with the New York Jets, where they came back from 10 points down with not that much time left on the clock. I think Gastineau made a stupid error and was roughing the passer penalty. It opened the door. Long story short, they went to overtime. They won the game. Exciting as all get out. And then the next week was, you know, you go from up here to down. The next week was the drive with John Elway and the Broncos. But that was one of the most exciting because that was when Bernie and company kind of came of age. And what you saw on Sunday night was kind of the Browns, this new Browns regime with Stefanski only a year into his job, they kind of came to fruition. What they had hoped Browns football would be, a playoff victory against no less than the hated Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. That's pretty big.
Yeah, Pittsburgh has not been kind to this organization over the years. How did they pull off this win in that city on that stage?
Well, if you saw a Pro Bowl center snap the ball over Ben's head on the first play, you kind of said, this might be one of those nights. They had 4 takeaways. You have to do that against the Steelers. And then I thought what was really ingenious was Nick Chubb, as we all know, can run the football as well as anybody in the National Football League, and he had his yardage. But he was very effective catching the ball out of the backfield, scored on a screen that went a long distance. They got comeuppance for the Steelers in one of the plays that came about in the 6th week of the season when Baker got suckered into that robber play by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who picked him off and took it to the house and set the tone. They scored a touchdown on the same kind of play that, so you know that Baker's starting to see things a lot better than he did earlier in the season. And that's all attributable to what Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt and company have done with him, elevating his game.
Yeah, there's so many great footnotes to this storyline. The team FaceTimed Kevin Stefanski after the game. He had to watch this from his basement because of COVID. What does that say about his leadership and his relationship with the players and the bond this Browns team has?
You know, it's pretty cool. I felt that we would see, Jack, how important Kevin Stefanski is and the culture that he has instilled here in Cleveland by how they perform when he's not there. So there he was in the basement in Bay Village, west side of Cleveland. And a funny footnote to that is that he had paused the game and then did not catch up to the real time. And he heard his family going crazy upstairs because he's quarantined in the basement. What's this all about? So he catches up and then he realizes it's Marquise Pouncey, the first play of the game, and the Browns were off and running. He has a great rapport with the players, which is, when you consider, Jack, it's amazing that he does, because he never got a chance to really build that with them in the earlier part of the season. But what they did via Zoom meetings, they had a unique exercise where the guys really gave their true feelings and stories about where they came from. And even though they weren't in close proximity to each other, you know, near each other in a meeting room, but looking at each other like I'm looking at you on the camera on my phone, they were able to build that. It's almost like a 2020 type of way to have a relationship, where you do it via a device, but then there still is that human-to-human contact that comes forward on the field, and how they look after each other when they're off the field as well. It's pretty unique.
And one of the craziest stories of 2020, Blake Kantz goes from Jets practice squad. The Browns sign him, and thanks to COVID, he can't practice. Boom, he's suddenly in the game in the fourth quarter on Sunday. His first NFL action, I believe, and he gets that infamous shout-out from Baker Mayfield. Should they remove the name Hans from the back of the jersey and change it to a guy named Blake?
I think it's fantastic. The fact that Baker shouted him out after the game, like, I met this guy, some guy named Blake, you know, and who happens to be blocking for you late in the game, because another guy who really wasn't supposed to be playing, Michael Dunn, played 3/4 of the game and did a fantastic job. So, yeah, has Blake Hans, has he discovered the cure for COVID? Has he done anything else besides just play football? I mean, we can enhance this story, and I didn't mean that as a pun. We can enhance the story more if you'd like, Jack.
I know him personally because he blocked with my son at Northwestern. Great guy. Browns fans, you'll love him. Now the Browns have to get past this feel-good story and get ready for the defending Super Bowl champs and Patrick Mahomes. How healthy will they be, and how do they win this game?
Well, they're going to be pretty healthy, knock on wood, if we don't have any more news as this week goes along. But Tonio should be back. Denzel Ward should be back. Kevin Stefanski should be in the facility. If it's open and running this week, midweek, he should be back as far as that's concerned. So most everybody kind of going to be ready to be able to play. They still obviously won't have Olivier Vernon, who is out because of the Achilles, and he's going to be a long-term project coming back. How do you beat them? Well, you've got to get a couple of turnovers on Kansas City, and you have to employ a kind of keep away, run the clock down, the play clock down to near zero. So stretch out the game with your possessions to keep Patrick off of the field. Now, they've scored points on 4 games this year, Jack, where they've scored over 40 points, and 2 of those opponents they scored a lot of points on were the Steelers and the Ravens, who have fairly good, defensive reputation. So I think they can score on Kansas City, but can they get into a track meet with Patrick Mahomes? Well, they're going to have to hope for some fumbles and things of those natures, because as much as they did it in college, both Baker and Patrick, in shootouts that were legendary, in the NFL, Patrick really has established himself as kind of like the face of the league and is a fantastic player. So they're just going to have to play the game of their lives for a second week in a row.
Every once in a while, you run across a story that is so far-fetched it screams fiction. But when it plays out right before your eyes, you have to enjoy the moment. Despite the fact he had just one practice with the Cleveland Browns, Blake Kantz made his NFL debut on Sunday in the Browns' wild card win over the Steelers. After the game, Baker Mayfield said he introduced himself to a guy named Blake in the locker room before the game. Well, that guy named Blake joins us now from Cleveland. Blake, thanks for being here. 2 weeks ago, you were biding your time on the practice squad of the Jets. Now you're the toast of Cleveland. How would you describe the last few days or last couple of weeks of your life?
Yeah, things change quickly. You never know when things are going to change, but 10 days ago I was with the Jets practice squad thinking that my season was 24 hours from being over, and all of a sudden the Browns signed me from the Jets and drove down to Cleveland, and a lot of injuries and some COVID and everything else, and got a chance to go in for a few plays. So it's been an exciting week or two here.
Well, you get there, the facility's closed. You barely had a chance to meet any of your teammates or your position coaches. How were you able to get yourself prepared for that game?
Yeah, you know, all week we still met virtually. We're able to watch tape, and me and a couple other guys who are newer to the team had extra meetings with coaches to make sure we had the playbook down. And luckily I was with Coach Callahan, the offensive line coach, for a little bit in Washington last year. So a lot of the calls and scheme are carryover from a system I've been in before. So that really helped with the transition into the new offense.
Blake, since you graduated from Northwestern, you've spent time with Washington, Jacksonville, Buffalo, the Jets, and now the Browns. Did I cover them all? I think I got it right.
Yep. That's number 5 already.
So you've been signed and cut. How do you stay motivated when you don't know if you'll ever get a shot?
Yeah, I've been lucky that each time, you know, that a team has moved on from me, that it's been a pretty short period of time before another team has picked me up. So I've been very lucky to where those, you know, unemployment periods haven't been too long for me, so I haven't had too much time to doubt. And, you know, being on a practice squad all last year and the majority of this year is still a great gig. So that, you know, I was happy to have at the time. You know, obviously you want to be called up the whole time, but so yeah, there's been a lot of transition periods, but, you know, luckily none of them have lasted too long so far.
Will you dress, or will you just go back to the practice squad and help this team prepare role?
Still don't know everything for sure. As of right now, I would guess that I would still be. But like you said, we're hoping to get some guys back off of COVID list and some from injuries. So, you know, most likely will be a reserve role again. But, you know, as I found out last week, you never know what can happen. So you got to prepare like you're going to be in on every play.
Blake, I know Browns fans are waiting a long time for that playoff win. And you got to be a part of it, and you got to be in that locker room when the team FaceTime Coach Stefanski. What was it like after that win? How much joy were you surrounded by? Yeah,
it was a lot of excitement in the locker room. You know, obviously I had just gotten there, so definitely didn't have a full appreciation. And, you know, even other guys who have been there for a couple of years don't have a full appreciation of, you know, how long it's been for fans to be able to enjoy a moment like that. But, you know, there's a ton of excitement in Cleveland, which has been really cool to see, and everybody understands that and has been embracing it. So the locker room was definitely a very exciting place. And, you know, now everybody's focused on the next one.
Last question for you. How much do you love this game, and have you loved this game to endure what you've had to endure to get where you are right now?
Obviously, that's why you do it. It's a profession and a job, but, you know, you can't really get to this league without having a passion for it. And I think being a part of a game like that was so important to a city just kind of reaffirms that. And, you know, that's kind of why you play the game. Even from when you're young, you're hoping for an opportunity like that. You always dream of being on that stage. So, yeah, it definitely reaffirms that passion for sure.
All right, we're out of time. That'll put a wrap on this week's show. Our big thanks to our guests, a guy named Blake, Jared Payton, John Tellich, Burke Griffin, Rob Collins, Josh Reed, and Ed Daniels. For our producer, Spencer Wheelock, and our crew here in Grand Rapids, I'm Jack Tolles. Enjoy what should be a great weekend of football, and thanks for joining us on Big Game Bound.